Welcome back to Magnetic String Works. So today on the workbench we have this Chibson, not a Gibson, but Chibson Les Paul Standard. Looks pretty real at first glance. We have this cherry sunburst finish, flame maple, standard controls, tune-o-matic bridge, humbucker switch. Can't tell if that's rosewood or not, or a dyed sort of Pau Ferro. Headstock looks pretty good too. Let me flip it over. Well, it says made in USA. Definitely not made in USA, and that serial number, may indicate 2001, 2017, I don't know, I'll look that up. These are unmarked tuners, but they're sort of vintage style tuners with the green coloring of the tuning keys. I don't see a scarf joint in the neck. And we have a set neck here, control cavity, and two-piece glue up here for this mahogany body. I'm assuming it's mahogany or some sort of Asian mahogany. Output jack. Okay. Looks like a Les Paul. Let me weigh it. Alright, hanging up here in the workshop. And it says 8.44 pounds, which is, I'll switch this here, 3.83 kilograms. So it's actually a pretty light Les Paul. I kind of like that. So I purchased this guitar off Facebook Marketplace here in Ottawa, and the seller had purchased it direct from China and hasn't really done anything, set it up a little bit, but I gotta admit I'm kind of addicted to these Chibsons because I'm very curious, how good can they make them? Now, they don't need to have that on there, right? So they can put a different brand or no brand, which is fine by me. Anyways, we'll ignore that for now. But how good can they make these for that price, right? And what are they doing to make them cheaper? So I'm going to have a good close look at this guitar with you, and we'll find out what makes a Chibson tick. Alright, we'll start off at the headstock, obviously the contentious part with the Gibson logoing, branding, so again, ignore that. The headstock looks about right, the carve, everything like that. Truss rod cover. These tuners are cheap. There's slack in a few of them. The A string here takes you gotta get that slack before it starts to tune. So these are inexpensive, so there's one way they make it a little cheaper. The fretboard. So the frets themselves, I don't really feel anything sharp. The odd, maybe, not really. Nothing that I would say, ow, I can't play. So that's pretty good. They obviously don't have the Gibson nibs, those fret end nibs, which I'm not a fan of anyways, so that's okay. The nut is plastic, so that's something that can be changed out, of course, but there's, cost savings, of course. The frets, there's no wear on these frets. Fingerboard, like I said, I don't think it's rosewood, but maybe it's been dyed to look like rosewood, or it could be rosewood. I don't know. The inlays look pretty good, actually. They're nice, nicely executed. Binding on the side looks fine. Again, the frets aren't horrible. Two humbuckers, love them or hate them. You know what? Some people love humbuckers they get on Epiphones or other Chinese imports. Some people hate them. You can always switch them out. So I don't really care about these as long as they work. That's fine. Three-way switch. I'm not expecting anything fantastic here, but we'll check it. We'll plug it in a second. So just standard, out of the box bridge and tailpiece. Now, I'm a little concerned at the height of the bridge here. That's higher than normally what I would see, and you've had to jack up the rear bridge pickup quite a bit. So maybe there's something with the neck angle or the neck relief, that kind of stuff. So we'll have to check that. Standard volume tone. I did notice these blemishes. There's 3 black, looks like Sharpie marks. I don't think it's on top of the finish. I might try rubbing it. It looks underneath, which is kind of weird. Not sure how they would have got there, and then they just finished over it, but that's what you get. Is this real maple veneer or paper overlay? My bet would be a paper overlay, but it could be a real veneer. Let me flip it over. Okay, here's our rear plate, control cover plate, the switch cover plate. One thing I noticed is I have these screws that are proud domed screws instead of wood screws, and then you countersink them. I don't like that, personally. If I keep this guitar, I might actually change that. Output jack. It's probably not a Switchcraft, but wasn't expecting that. The wood looks like mahogany, solid, but like I said, 2 pieces. Here's the glue line there. And then the neck is 1 piece. Yeah, you can see the grain coming across like this all the way down. So that's interesting. No scarf joint, no volute. Feels nice. It's a pretty slim neck too. So overall, the build quality, while it's flipped over, just have a peek down here. It's pretty good. I've seen real Gibsons a lot worse than this as far as binding, and like right here, here's the binding and there's some overlap on the finish, but very minute, honestly. So overall, I'm gonna rate this build quality just on appearance alone and feel. I'm gonna give this about I get a 7, maybe a 7.5. You give me your rating. What do you think? So in my opinion, what differentiates most electric guitars, one from another, is the quality of the components. So far, the build of the body and the neck looks nice. The fretwork looks okay. I haven't checked it with a fret rocker yet, but this is where you can change things on these Chibsons or Epiphones or Squires, that kind of thing. Put different pickups in, maybe you get Gibson, original parts and change all this out. Or, obviously the pickups of your choice. The pots, I suspect these are going to be very small pots in there. So that's where they sort of cheap out on some of this, but that's what you can do with these. They're great modification platforms. That's what I like about them. You can experiment, different sounds. Again, maybe take Gibson off the headstock, but other than that. So let me plug it in, make sure it works. Oh, that's the tuner, sorry. This is the bench amp. Okay, so we're gonna go to the neck. Okay, so the configuration is good for the switch, and there's no noise, which is nice. So, volume. Yeah, there's a bit of a tone difference there. Let's go to the bridge. A significant drop off in the volume output of this pickup compared to the neck pickup. Interesting. It's definitely tone different. So let me check the impedance, the resistance of these pickups. Okay, so I've set up the multimeter to measure resistance in ohms or kilo ohms. You plug in an output jack, and I'm going to take the output jack here, and I'm going to put the ground wire, the black in this case, on the shaft of the output jack, and then on the tip, the hot lead, I'm going to put the red lead like that, and that's going to give us a resistance or reading. So we're at the neck, it's 10.38 kilo ohms. The bridge is, well, 10.83, 10.38, it's about the same. So these two are, at least the resistance is the same, and it should be half of that or so in the middle, yeah, 5.3. So resistance is not the only way to measure the output, but it gives you a good idea. So in, on paper or using a meter, basically these two pickups are the same as far as resistance go, which would indicate that they're wound the same way and would have probably the same characteristics in the volume or tone. Okay, let's see what's inside here. I'm not expecting anything fantastic. I have been surprised before with Chibsons and seen CTS pots, or at least ones that look like they're branded that way, but not in this case. Yeah, we have small pots here. Let me move the camera over for you. There we go. So you can see here we've got very small dime pots. And something else that's kind of interesting. Look at that. I'm seeing MDF. Okay. Not here, but there. So that's telling me that although this is a solid, wood body, they've put an overlay. It looks like a thin MDF overlay with a paper or wood veneer. So there's a cap, and it's probably the thickness of this binding of MDF. They've routed it because the body does have a contour to it. And, okay, well, there's a way that you save some money, I guess. I don't know how much money you save, but that is MDF. Interesting. The things you find in a Chibson, right? Ignoring the MDF for the moment, I mean, the wiring is a standard, Gibson wiring scheme, so that's fine. But these pots, those are, and again, if they work and they sound okay to you, then fine, right? But that's something you can upgrade and change relatively easy enough. Let's look at the switch. Mysteries will we find here? Oh, that's no good. Sorry, you don't want to look at my hairy knuckles there or anything, right? Do you? Maybe you do. Let me know in the comments. So generally, these switches on Chibsons are usually, those electronic type switches sealed up, which are never really good, to be honest. Because when they fail, and you have no clue what's going on. Let's see what they've got here. I will look at. Oh, see, these are countersunk holes. Oh yeah, look at that. They are countersunk holes. Of course, it'll be hard to see, but they've used, a domed screw, so it doesn't sit flush in the countersink. I have some other screws. I'll probably change that. Okay, well, there's the MDF again down there. I can see it. But okay, that's a good, decent switch. All tucked in there real tight. Okay, well, pretty much the MDF is a bit of a surprise, but the rest is pretty par for the course, as they say. Well, while I have it flipped over, these tuners, they're cheapy feeling. Definitely, yeah, you know, very, very inexpensive. So, you know, I would change those to Gibsons or Wilkinsons or Clousons or something, right? Something that's better than that. But the look is good, you know, it looks like vintage tuners. Well, a guitar is only as good as the truss rod. If you watched a lot of my videos and pretty much every other video where you set up guitars, truss rod obviously is the most important thing, because if you can't adjust the neck, it's basically firewood, especially on a set neck that's glued into this guitar. If it's a Fender bolt-on, chuck the neck, get another one if it doesn't work, right? So let's see what's under this truss rod cover. This is always the mystery, right? What do we got? Okay, this screw's coming out relatively easy, but the other screw is not actually in anything. Okay, that's because this route here, or access, is all the way back there. Interesting. Oh boy, that looks really messy. Let me see if I can zoom in for you. Pardon the camera work here, but I'm going to turn it a bit. Look at that. So yeah, there's a thick buildup of paint and finish here. And then this hole to get to the truss rod. Wow. Looks like it's been chewed out by a rabid raccoon or something. Yeah, I've just raised it up so we can see a little better, and I'll get a light in there. Yeah, that's one of the nastiest looking truss rod access holes I have seen, honestly. Pretty bad. So what's more important than aesthetics? Does it actually turn? That would be the next question. So let me see. I'm going to guess that this is 4 mil. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to loosen it. Okay, well, it moves smoothly. I'm going to bring it back the other way. Okay, so for the moment, looks like the truss rod works. So let's check the setup of this guitar as it sits right now. So the previous owner of this guitar, who I bought it from, said that he had it recently set up by someone he uses from time to time, and so we'll see if this guitar is set up semi-decently. I'm going to use my pickup and string height gauges, which you can purchase at ManticStringworks.com, of course, a shameless plug to help me along. So we're going to check the neck relief first, and I'm going to capo the first fret. And I like to see about 8 to 9 thousandths at the 7th fret on a Les Paul style guitar. So I'm going to press down, you know, somewhere near the body joint here, or the last fret if you like. And let's see how much relief we have. Okay, we have none. You can also check that by tapping down here. Like that string's right on the fret, so there is no relief. So let's release the truss rod. We think it works, right? So I'm going to give this about an 1/8 of a turn. See if it moved. Okay, I can get the 8 thousandths feeler gauge underneath. That's progress. Maybe another 1/8 of a turn or so. I'm really going to make sure that truss rod key is in the truss rod nut perfectly, because I don't trust that it will get stripped out. Okay. Okay. It's just barely touching, so kind of liking that. I'll give it just another little tweak, just like that, and we'll leave it. So, okay, that moved. There we go. That's better. Okay, we have relief. Houston, we have relief. Good. Okay, so for the general specifications on a Les Paul style guitar, string height should be 5/64 or 2 millimeters at the 12th fret on the 6th string, and 3/64 or 1.2 millimeters on the 1st string at the 12th fret. Again, these are guidelines, but generally that's what you want to see. So I'm going to use my string height gauges here, and 5/64 at the 12th fret. I'm going to slide it under. Yeah, we have bounce, so we can drop that down. And 3/64 on the 1st string. And we have lots there. Okay, so the action can come down significantly. And I'm not surprised because I'll show you the bridge here. As I pointed out at the beginning of the video, I found the bridge really high. Should be, lower than that. So I think we have room to drop this down to get our string action where we want. So these guitars here, this bridge here has got a nice slotted top here, so you can easily get in there with a screwdriver. You can use a thumb wheel. Now generally you can lower a bridge, of course I say that, I can't turn that. You can lower the bridge when it's under tension. Raising it though, you definitely want to slacken the tension, or I did show a video where I used this sort of improvised jack where we can lift that bridge up. See, there we go, and give us some room to move. But since we're going down, we don't need to do that at the moment. So I'm just going to turn this a little bit here. Just make sure we're going down. That's what I see. Both sides need to come down a bit. Of course, what I like about using my string height gauges here is, 5/64 is what I want. I put it on top of the fret under the string. I can hear the bounce. So as I lower the saddle height here on the bridge, I can just run my gauge underneath, and I'm going to feel it and hear it touch the string. Yeah, it's just touching now. There's no bounce. So I usually let it touch and then I just raise it just a hair. Okay, so that's 5/64. So that's an easy adjustment. I will check it in the playing position afterwards with a string action ruler like that. I always do both. But this gets you to where you need to be pretty close, if not always right on. Yeah, and I like the fact that it's visual, oral, in the sense I can hear it, and tactile, I can feel it. Yeah, I can hear that. Hopefully you can. So again, I'm going to raise it up just a hair. There we go. Okay, let me tune it up. We'll check it out. While we're down this end, I'm going to check the pickup height. And again, I'll use a pickup gauge here. And so bass side is 1/8, and the treble side is 3/32 or 6/64. So I want to run that, push down on the last fret and run it under the string in the top of the pole piece. So, oh, is that a flathead? No, it is a. So here I want to lower that as much as it'll go. I think we're right down. Go back here to the bridge. That still could come up, believe it or not. Okay, that's pretty good. That's good. A little bit. So I find that interesting, and again, it might just be because it looks high because there isn't a tall pickup ring around the pickup. This is pretty much like a flat plate on the body. Normally the pickup ring would come up and it would be at least, half of the pickup almost. So, okay, pickup height's adjusted, string height's adjusted, neck relief is adjusted. Let's check the nut action. So if you press down at the 3rd fret and then fret the string at the 1st fret, yeah, see there's a lot of room I'm pushing down quite a bit. I can just see, you know, there's a lot of room. So there's probably more than 22 thousandths under that string. Yeah, so if I push that feeler gauge on top of the fret and strum the string, yeah, it's not rattling against it. If it was tight or lower, you know, you'd hear that, right? So definitely the the first fret action needs to be lowered quite a bit. I like to see about 18 thousandths for, you know, a Les Paul. So we're gonna have to lower that quite a bit, but it's not something I'm gonna do at the moment. I just want to check the frets, make sure there isn't high frets anywhere, get the fret rocker out, have a look at this fretboard. Alright, I'm going to get the fret rocker out here. Oh, let me put that on. And we're going to check and see if we have unlevel frets. Well, there we go. We're starting off with a bang. So that second fret here. I want to span 3 frets. Okay. That was me, I think. So far, so good. Well, almost at the end. A little bit there. Could be a high fret. Let me go back. Just here. Yeah, so right there. So what's that? The 16th fret. Just a touch. That's where it meets the body here, which is not surprising. Sometimes the fret doesn't get sat in there, you know, set all the way down. Okay, so 16th fret, might be a little bit of rocking going on. Yeah, right here on this, so on the lower first, second, third string side. Let me go back here and check that. Yeah, so the second fret, definitely there's a little bit of rocking as well. Again, that just might be the fret is not seated all the way down. And you can check that by using a feeler gauge, something pretty thin. And I don't have my 4 thousandths out on the bench for some reason. But here's a really thin 3 thousandths. And I'm going to check and see if it slides under. Yeah, it slides under the fret a little bit. So on that second fret, I can feel it go under a bit more than it should. And if I check the 16th fret, yeah, I get the same thing. I think it just needs to be, they just need to be pushed down a bit. So I can do that pretty easily with a special customized Jenga block, right? And I'm just going to support this a little closer. And all I'm going to do here is just lightly tap it down right here, just on the end. And you don't have to do a lot. Let's see if that helped. Yeah, there we go. It's gone. Yeah. So that's all it needed, and I'll do the same thing up at the second fret. Okay, so final impressions of this Chibson Les Paul Standard. I think overall the build quality is pretty darn good. Looks solid, frets are good, the neck is nice and comfortable and playable. You know, a few little aesthetic blemishes here. And we do know we have an MDF cap with a paper overlay or wood veneer, not sure about that. Components wise, you know, pretty average, standard sort of import stuff. Inexpensive dime-sized pots, off the shelf, you know, saddle, tailpiece, bridge, pickups, up to you whether you like them or not. The switch looks okay, I don't mind that, feels solid too. Fretwork is pretty decent. The tuners definitely should be replaced, but I could say that on pretty much any Epiphone or Squire or less expensive guitar. We'll get rid of that. Otherwise, solid little guitar, definitely for modifying, adding stuff to, being crazy with it, you know, painting it, doing something neat. They're inexpensive. The owner of this guitar, the previous owner, never, you know, hid the fact that this is a Chibson, had it in the ad, told me straight up front. He bought it from AliExpress, I think it was. So, you know, there's no doubt that this is a Chibson, and no one's trying to pass it off as a Gibson, and I certainly wouldn't. What I might do is, I don't know, I was going to put a sticker down there, made in China. I think that's probably the best thing to do. Or maybe I laser etch up here, made in the USA by the way of China. Something like that, you know. All right, like I said, I'm pretty much addicted to these Chibsons. You know, not trying to pass them off, but I think they're fun to play around with, and it's very interesting to see, like, how can you make this guitar? I think he originally paid like $350 Canadian, not more than 400 Canadian for it. I paid half of that. So, you know, for that price, sure, change things out, go to town, have fun. All right, tell me what you think of Chibsons. You like them, love them, hate them, don't care, whatever. All right, I love your comments. Leave me lots of comments. Remember to like and subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll see you in the next video.